Hey Buns, so today I have a bit of a spicy video for you, and that is because we are going to talk about a situation where you give advice to someone and they, to your surprise, react quite badly. Or conversely, a scenario when someone tries to give you unsolicited advice that you don't really want. Because I've heard some people tell me that they are actually afraid to give advice at all because they're worried about being reported. And of course, we've all heard the "you don't pay my sub" response whenever you just try to help someone. Like that's a meme at this point. Is a bad reaction avoidable at all? Or are some people just really defensive? Or a lot of people that way? I don't know. So I took to Twitter to ask the question, have you ever politely tried to offer someone advice in FFXIV, but they got angry or upset? Or has someone given you unsolicited advice that you didn't want? How did you react? Keyword being politely. Have you ever politely tried to give someone advice? Because yeah, if you are just telling someone like, hey, you need to learn to play because you're a no, this video is not about you and your little experience. Okay, stop acting like that. Stop it. Who raised you? My main concern is like, when are people trying to politely just give some friendly advice and they have somebody blow up on them? Is this something that's happening a lot? Quick little disclaimer before we get started though. I have a feeling like some people might be misremembering how polite they actually were. So maybe take that, with a grain of salt too. I've been given wonderful advice that I just didn't listen to because at the time I had the "you don't pay my sub" mindset. When I started raiding, I regretted the fact that I didn't listen. When someone gives me advice, I usually reply back with a smile and say thanks, regardless of whether it's right or wrong. Half the time, people give incorrect advice. Actually, that's a good point. Something you might want to keep in mind rather than taking for gospel. Like every piece of advice people give you, they might be wrong, so you might want to just double check on that. I once tried to help out a Sprout white mage who just kept spamming Cure 3. They kept doing it and said, I know how to play my class, thanks. Needless to say, the dungeon took a while. I normally ask for advice when I enter to a new dungeon, trial, or raid. I'm a Sprout white mage and I always try to better myself. You will go far. I was telling a white mage about how great Holy is while tanking the Airy, and for some reason one of the DPS spent the rest of the dungeon arguing with me, just to later admit that my advice was solid and they were only trying to protect their friend. From what? Improving? Even if someone in my party is making very obvious mistakes, I just stay silent most of the time. I don't feel like risking a report. Unfortunately, yeah, that is the really negative effect of this fear of people lashing out whenever you try to give advice. That's one of the reasons I wanted to make this video, because what if someone won't even give advice that could have potentially really helped someone because they're afraid of a potential backlash? Like, I think that's kind of silly. It sucks. It sucks that you're afraid to even give advice. Tried giving some quick tips during dungeons and people were like, don't tell me how to play or I'll report you. A member of my previous FC tried to give me advice, which was kind, and I'm always grateful for this, but the way he talked to me was so rude. Like, we need to talk. You have issues with your DPS. Like, holy crap. I have anxiety just reading that in a vocal with other members. I was confused and it was quite difficult to listen. That's a horrible way to deliver this advice. Please don't do this to people, y'all. It appears his advices were pretty good. Okay. But DPS as a tank is now better than his, but it was just very rude. Yeah. So I think some people need to be careful with their words and attitude if they really want to help. But in my point of view, constructive advice are always useful. Well, you sound awesome. It sounds like you handled this incredibly well. You actually took the advice in spite of sort of a delivery that most certainly gave me anxiety just from reading it. But it's good to see that you took it and you improved. Just yesterday, I was doing Keeper of the Lake for the first time, and the tank had the Ultimate Legend title, which made me sweat profusely. But once we started, the guy was giving me tips and telling me how to be better combining DPSing and healing, which honestly helped me a lot. What a king. That's a wholesome one. I haven't had anyone get mad at me for giving advice. I give necessary info, and I tend to give advice without talking down to people. It's a winning strategy, my friend. Joined in on leveling roulette as a white mage. My tank was a Sprout paladin. Poor guy did not use any mitigation or whatsoever. After our third wipe, I advised him that mitigation would help us survive, but he left the party instead. Well, it sounds to me like maybe he doesn't know what mitigation is. Like, if he's a Sprout, he might not know what that word means, like what that refers to. And maybe it was just too embarrassed to ask the question. And that's actually really sad. Here's a weird one where somebody was giving advice to a white mage in the party. And then the tank got angry that the person was giving the white mage advice. They were like, no, don't give advice. It's just castrum. You don't have to do anything right in here. I've been told many times to move my character faster and dodge AoEs. Dude, I'm running as fast as my dragon legs can carry me. Move your character faster. That's a new one. I really like that one. I hate when I'm tanking and a healer tells me to use clemency more often. No. I can't even understand that. I hate it when the paladin uses clemency. Because, like, it's just so ungrateful, right? This dirty, nasty paladin heals when I'm serving up these delicious, freshly baked white mage heals. It's not good enough. I see how it is. Someone was very nicely attempting to lecture me on materia, and being a tired college student, I said I knew what I was doing, then dropped out when they wouldn't drop it. Yeah, honestly, sometimes it can just be exhausting if you've had a long day and someone's like giving you information overload. Like that can just feel like a bit much. Sometimes just if you're gonna give advice, just get straight to the point. Once a super friendly ninja offered my friend and I some advice and even free armor because my friend wasn't tanking too well. I was grateful, but my friend blew up on him and left the dungeon. He was a super nice dude and we talked for a bit and he gave me advice I use to this day. It sounds like your friend was self-conscious about poor performance, like probably knew that he didn't know what he was doing, wasn't doing a great job, and felt just really attacked when he was called out on it because he was already like probably anxious about it. I wonder if you ever talked to your friend about that encounter and asked him why he blew up so much. Like maybe that could be something that he would learn from, hopefully, and not repeat because it's really, really silly. If I don't need or want advice, a polite thanks, but I don't need any help usually works. There you go. So that's a way you can handle it if you just simply do not want the advice for whatever reason. At the same time, you got to understand that usually when people are giving you advice, they have good intentions, like especially if they're doing it in a nice way. I remember once while on Machinist, I was told to play bar songs so they could do more damage. Yeah, can you play a song with your gun? Here you go. I found what you need. I once spent months back in Heaven's Ward with a not so good level 60 PvP machinist weapon, and someone finally said something to me once we were in a dungeon for over 30 minutes and I got super defensive. I knew nothing. I was nothing. Hey, look, it's really cool of you that you were able to now, in retrospect, admit that you were super defensive. Just yesterday, I was healing Tamtara Deepcroft, and the tank was what I assume an absolute noob. Didn't have Defiance activated, didn't use Overpower, ran like a Deeps. Gave them advice to play their role, and they actively did the opposite just to spite us. It's because they hear the advice, and they're like, embarrassed, realizing that they're doing everything wrong. It's okay to just take a deep breath and admit that you don't know what you're doing. It's okay. It's not bad to not know what you're doing in the beginning. Nobody knows what they're doing at the start. I found giving advice to people directly through words never reads well for some reason and always elicits a negative reaction. I still want to help though now, so I tend to link guides from credible sources such as The Balance, and that's more well received. Yeah, that's one way to handle it. Just be careful about the guides that you link. There might be a few they've already seen and taken to heart. I usually ask if anyone needs a rundown after a wipe, or I ask for tips even if I don't need them. Ooh, just so the info is in the chat if anyone needs it, without having to feel scared about asking. Oh my gosh, I know I've been too nervous to ask for things before, so I try to help when needed. That is so wholesome and smart and clever. Asking for tips when you don't need them, so the info is in the chat. You are clever, and your character is extremely cute. So way to go. Way to go. You are winning at the game. Oh, this is horrible. I have to say the worst for me was someone who, after I stated I was just learning to tank, offered me some advice. I politely thanked him. And the very next pull, I made a mistake, and he got very upset with me and started to berate me as a player, telling me to uninstall the game. You need to report this guy. That sucks so much. Oh man, that actually makes me super, super mad. That like first they were nice about it, and then they flip on you. Oof. What a terrible, terrible person. I was a tank in one of the Realm Reborn dungeons, and the healer asked me to slow down since they were still getting used to it. The monk DPS wanted me to speed up, and I wanted to jump off the side of the castle walls. Well, that's when you turn to the monk DPS and you say, by God, I will turn this car around if you don't cool your jets. We're going at the healer's pace, all right? We're not going to go to McDonald's if you don't cool it. A guy was like, hey, can I give some advice about healing? And I accepted. After the final boss, he stuck around for like 10 minutes and taught me how to play White Mage really well. I'm actually thankful for that. What a legend. Where is he? Can he teach me how to play White Mage really well, please? Where are you? Help. I don't know what I'm doing. One time someone got big mad at me and said I needed to start using my dots. I was playing a red mage. Damn, all of the red mages are slacking. Tried explaining to the tank that healers had to DPS as well, so he pulled as much as he could to try and prevent me from DPSing. When I continued to heal and use my holy, he shirked me. These tanks should not be healed. Are you new to healing? I like to jump up and down all the time in game, and I was doing so while waiting for a friend when this random sprout messaged me, you can't fly in this zone. That's what you're trying to do. They thought you were trying to fly because you were jumping up and down. And then they logged out. It's like when you try to fly in a dream. You're like, oh man, it's great. Oh my god, a red mage that was hard casting Ver Arrow and Ver Thunder. I explained how to use dual cast, and they replied, hey, pro tip, do the mechanics. Even though they were the reason we wiped. That is a fresh hell I haven't heard of yet. Red mage hardcasting Ver Arrow Ver Thunder. I think that's actually worse than ice mage. Had a tank, honest to God, get annoyed at our healer for healing too much. Maybe the tank was used to getting healed by me. They're just not used to all that healing. I honestly get embarrassed because I read their advice as aggressive, depending on how they word it, even if they don't mean it. It makes me feel like a burden, but I always try my best. And I usually don't give advice because I'm scared of being wrong. Wow, that is some straight up honesty. Thank you so much for your candor here. I think that a lot of people can relate to what you've said, though. Like, it never feels good to get called out or to be told that you're doing something wrong. It sucks to feel like everyone noticed you doing not great, you know? Even if they don't mean it. Like, you're aware that they don't mean to be aggressive, even if you're reading it that way. And that's really self-aware of you, and it sounds like you are indeed doing your best. As someone who plays both WoW and 14, I've been amazed at how infrequent spats like that seem to be in 14. Most people seem so willing to help and be helped. Yeah, that's my experience too. In the 7 years I have played this game, I can count the number of times someone has taken advice well on one hand. Holy crap. It's weird how some people seem to be having a lot of good experiences giving advice, and other people have a lot of bad. I mean, there's so many factors involved, it's hard to know exactly why that might be the case for you, that you consistently get a bad reaction when you try to offer advice. Could be bad luck, could be your delivery, it could be a whole mess of things. It's hard to say. My own personal experience giving advice has usually just been to mention something briefly without directly targeting someone, and it's generally well received. So that sounds really good, and if you can pull that off somehow, that's amazing. I don't know if that's always possible, because sometimes it's like very specific to that person what they need to change. Like, you can't be like, so did y'all hear that story in the news about the tank who used tank stance? Someone asked the red mage for a res, and they started spamming the chat that I should not tell them how to play. They bought the game, same as I did, not to have anyone telling them what to do. I mean, look, if that's your point of view, you should play a single player game. There are plenty of high quality single player Final Fantasy games waiting for you to enjoy them, where no one will be inconvenienced by your attitude. I actually got advice before and was upset at first. Like, I know what I'm doing, then realized he was right, and it made me actually learn something I didn't know. That's why people need to not be so defensive. You may learn something. I absolutely love this comment, and I think that it's a really nice way for me to wrap up this video. That's kind of the message that I would like to end this video on. Have you been in a situation like this, either on the giving or the receiving end? Wow, that sounds really lewd. If so, let me know about it in the comments section down below. I would love to hear your stories. And if you have received advice that you didn't like, maybe you can tell us how you might have preferred the person to phrase it. Or have you gotten advice that you were actually badly to, and then later on you thought to yourself, wow, why did I react so badly? Like, it's actually fine. You know, like, was I just being too defensive or whatever? I can't wait to hear all of your responses here in the comments section down below. If you like this video, please consider supporting the channel on Patreon or on Twitch. You can also support the channel for free by clicking the subscribe button or by sharing this video with your fellow warriors of darkness. Thanks again so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.